It's time to do some street photography tips. Street photography tip number 1, dark clothing. You're never going to be invisible, it doesn't matter how big your camera is, but if you wear dark clothes, then people's eyes aren't, they can't see you out the corner of their eye. You're not got like a bright yellow jumper on or something like that. You just blend in with everybody else. And so hopefully that'll stop you being noticed as much. I mean, there's all this talk about, I have this little camera, I'm like invisible on the streets. Yeah, right, and you're a superhero, you can fly as well. It's just rubbish. But you can kind of go unseen is what people are really trying to say. So, yeah, wear dark clothes. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, reflections. If you normally like shooting in sunny and contrasted conditions and it's a little overcast and grey, try shooting some reflections. Shop windows is an obvious one. We've split window shots. I don't necessarily want a 50-50 reflection, as it's been done loads. So I try and line things up in the background, like the road, the buildings, and then I just try and make shapes with passers-by. Other reflections you can try, puddles. Puddles is a real good one because then in post you can flip the image and it's all the right way around. So that's quite another good one, So there's lots of things you can do with reflections, tons of shiny surfaces. You just got to look out for them. Tip number 3, learn your camera controls. I mean, if you've had a camera a long time, then you're going to know the controls. But if you've got a new camera and, get familiar with the controls before you head out on the street, set up the menus as you want, set up the function buttons as you want. So it's quick access to things like ISO and focus modes, all that kind of stuff. This really helps when you're on the street in a changing situation. You can quickly change to what you need and be ready. So learn your camera controls. Talking of custom functions, I did a video on how I've got my camera set up, the X100F. Tip number 4, going for the slow shutter speeds. Go for a small aperture, a low ISO, and then a nice slow shutter speed. Maybe something sort of less than 1/10 of a second, something like that. And then what I tend to do is look around, find someone who's pretty static, standing still on their phone, reading, looking at a signpost or something like that, but where there's lots of other people around, and then just focus on that one person who's still and get a picture of him, and then everyone else should really be blurry slightly, not mega, but slightly. It all really depends. If you're trying to do that when the sun is out, you might need like an ND filter or something like that. But if it's a grey, miserable day like it is today, that's pretty straightforward to get that kind of picture. Tip number 5, look for leading lines, like the patterns on the path, the road, the double yellow lines. All different things make good leading lines. Alleyways is a good one. What else have we used? Sometimes you can go to a place and there's not really any leading lines there, and then when you get some nice light, the light creates the lines. So you either get really nice long shadows leading up to a subject, or you get the subject and they're in the light, but the light is leading you into the picture. Tip number 6 is always stop for a beer. Are you the patient type of photographer, or are you the move around, never stopping photographer? Different photographers have a different approach, so it could be well worth trying both approaches. So you can be the guy who constantly moves from place to place, doesn't really stop, always on the move, or you can be a photographer who is will camp in a spot and really work a scene. Now, scenes change over time, the light, the people. Some people just pass through a scene, other people, well, they kind of, I don't know, they could be waiting for somebody, they kind of hang around. So you can kind of work that scene while people are static, even maybe try like the slow shutter speeds like I mentioned earlier. So that's 2 different approaches already. Different people have a different approach. Some people are more patient, so I've waited maybe half an hour is probably the longest, and then other people, they don't want to do that. But I would suggest just to keep your creative juices flowing, to literally try both approaches. Tip 7, try visiting a spot more than once. The same place always looks different in different light. I've used the spot over there outside Tesco's many times. You go in flat light, there's nothing really worth photographing, but on a late winter, the sun's low and shines right into that doorway. It's well worth going to the same place more than once, you know, visit it quite often. Some people get really attached to an area where they've got good shots and that before, so it's well worth visiting more than once. Let's call this tip number 8, 7, I don't know. Comfy shoes, that's always a good one. If you're going to be walking around for a long time, definitely get a pair of trainers or something that you really like walking around in. Tip number 9. Now me, I always shoot with primes. 35mm, 23mm on the X100, and just lately I've been using the 16mm, which I'm really enjoying. So this tip is stick with one lens for a good amount of time, say 3-4 months, and you know you then become sort of accustomed to shooting in that focal length. This will help you with composition, and you know it'll help you know where to stand, whether to move in closer or to step further back before you even lift the camera. This one's more of a technique than a tip. If you're worried about people spotting you when you're taking pictures, especially if you're new to street photography, you could always try the fishing technique, which is you find a nice spot of light, good background, graffiti, somewhere that you really like, and set your camera up, set your exposure all up ready, and just wait there, wait for people to come into the scene. And the thing I find about doing this is you're already there before people walk into the scene. So some people might give you a glance and look at you, and then they kind of quickly look away as if, you know, they don't want to be caught staring at you. So I find it's a good technique, and yeah, I think in the street photography realm, it's often referred to as fishing. So as always, if you're enjoying the videos, give them a thumbs up, you know, bung some comments down, and ring that bell for notifications, and you'll get a notification every time I upload a video, which is normally, you know, if I'm not too busy, I can get one in once a week. It could be once a fortnight, really depends. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it. And as the saying goes, stay sharp out there, people, and I'll see you on the streets. Maybe, if you're in my town, I might come and say hello. Till next time.